Okay, so today in class we learned how to solve a quadratic using the square root method. Okay, so instead of factoring like we've done before, today we're going to solve these using square roots. So whenever you have an x squared, in order to undo it so that you can get x by itself, you have to do the opposite of squaring, and the opposite of square rooting or squaring is square rooting. So in this case, if I want to get x alone, I am going to take the square root of both sides. And so the square root of x squared would give me x, that's what I want. And the square root of 81 is plus or minus 9. You have to remember your plus or minus 9. So this means that my answers are x equals 9 and x equals negative 9. So those would be our two solutions, or our two x-intercepts when we graphed it. Okay, number 2, take the square root of both sides. You get that x is equal to plus or minus 12 because the square root of 144 is 12. So that's x equals 12 and x equals negative 12 as our two solutions. On number 3, we have to get this to where x squared is alone. So we are going to need to add 8 to both sides first. So we get x squared equals 8. Then we can take the square root of both sides and we get that x is equal to plus or minus, and you're going to have to simplify 8. So that's going to be 2 times 4, which is 2 times 2. So the answer is going to be 2 radical 2. Here's a couple that comes out, and we've got 1, 2 left over. So this would be plus or minus 2 radical 2. We will not give decimals as answers, so you will need to simplify your radicals. On the next one, to get rid of the 3 in front of the x squared so that we can get x squared by itself, we would divide by 3. So x squared is going to be equal to 25. 75 divided by 3. And then we take the square root of both sides, so x is going to be equal to plus or minus 5. So x equals 5 and x equals negative 5 would be our two solutions. The plus or minus key is just an easy way for us to be able to write the answer without having to do what I just circled. So from here on out, we can just leave it as plus or minus 5, but it actually means x equals 5 and x equals negative 5. Okay, on this one, we're going to take away 1. So x squared is equal to 5. When you take the square root of both sides, you cannot simplify this. So this is just simply going to be plus or minus the square root of 5. Okay, on this one we're going to add 7 to both sides. So we have 3x squared equals 39 when we divide by 3. So we're kind of combining numbers 3 and 4 together in this problem. We get x squared equals 13. Then you take the square root of both sides and you get that x is equal to the plus or minus radical 13. Okay, number 7, a lot of people always want to distribute first. We do not distribute first. You are trying to keep this entire term right here squared. That has to be unsquared later. So before we can do that, we're going to divide by 4 to get rid of the 4 in front. So now you have x minus 1 quantity squared equals 2. At this point now you can take the square root so that you can undo that square. And you're going to end up having x minus 1, because that's what this would be. You have x minus 1 left, equals plus or minus the square root of 2. Now, in order to get x by itself, we would add 1 to both sides. And when you add the 1, please put the 1 inside, or before, I should say, the plus or minus. Don't put it at the end of the radical. So you don't want to do plus or minus radical 2 plus 1. You don't know where the radical starts and where it ends. So we don't write it like that. Instead, we put it the way I wrote it here, as 1 plus or minus the square root of 2. So we put that in front of the radical. Okay, number 8 has a combination of everything with it. Again, you are trying to keep this, get that by itself so that you can undo that later. So the first thing we would want to do is add 18 to both sides. Get rid of the 18 first. So we have 7 times x minus 4 quantity squared equals 28. Then we can divide by 7 to get those alone. So we have x minus 4 quantity squared equals 4. Now we can take the square root, and we have x minus 4 equals plus or minus 2. So if I add 4 to both sides, we're going to end up getting x equals 4 plus 2, and x equals 4 minus 2. So your two answers are 6 and 2. Okay? So again, on that one, because those were whole numbers, we actually can do the math. So 4 plus 2 and 4, instead of putting the answer as 4 plus or minus 2, go ahead and do the math. 4 plus 2 is 6, 4 minus 2 is 2. Number 9, we are going to add 10 to both sides. So we get 7x squared equals 35. Divide by 7. So x squared is equal to 5. And then take the square root. Do not forget your plus or minus. Okay? And square root of 5 cannot be simplified, so you have to leave it as the square root of 5. Okay, number 10. First thing we're going to do is just unsquare. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. We get x minus 4 equals plus or minus. Radical 12 is going to be, this is 3 times 4, which is 2 times 2. So here's one couple, it's going to be 2, and then there's a 3 left over. So it's 2 radical 3. Then we would add 4 to both sides. And so the answer would be, remember to put the 4 in the front, 4 plus or minus 2 radical 3. Okay, for the last word problem, it says find the value of x if the area of the square is equal to 256. So remember that area of the square is length times width, or side squared. So 4x times 4x equals 256. So this becomes 16x squared equals 256. Okay, so we divide by 16. Let's see, that's going to be 16, 6? 16? 256, yes, 16. And then to find x, we take the square root of x squared, and we get x is equal to plus or minus 4. Now, when you get plus or minus 4, can you have a negative side of an area? You can't. So this is an actual problem where when you say your answer is x equals 4 and x equals negative 4, the negative 4 has to be thrown out because it's a real life area and length and width. So you can't have negative length, negative width, negative area. So we throw out the negative answer, and so it says, what is the length of each side of the square? Well, if x is now equal to 4, then this length is going to be 4 times 4, which is 16. Okay? And then it says, what's the perimeter? Well, the perimeter is going to be 16, 16, 16, 16. So 16 times 4 is going to be 64. Okay?